So when a regulator isn't operating optimally, that will affect the customer's end process. That could affect production, it could affect the quality of their end product, it could affect purge times, or ultimately you could have a component downstream that fails due to inconsistent pressures in the system.
If a regulator is not functioning correct, then in most cases it will not make the flow the customer needs, or it makes the flow but at a different pressure.
The things that I need to do first when a customer are having this issue with the regulator is showing that we care, and how we make the fast response by having a meeting or discussion with them. The objective of the meeting or discussion is to gather detailed information from customer on what the issue exactly, what is the applications, what is the requirement like inlet, outlet pressure and flow.
I want to get as much information as I can from them, specifically where the regulator is being used, how it's being used, and what the expected operation of the regulator is. That helps me get a better picture of what potentially is not happening correctly.
The most common issue we see in the field with pressure regulators is creep. And so what creep means is, as the regulator is trying to shut off, flow's been shut down, you're not using the system anymore, that valve is going to contact the regulator seat, try to create a seal. Now, creep is when that seal is not fully created and there's still some leakage from the high pressure side of a regulator to the low pressure side. And this can be really problematic and dangerous if the downstream components are not rated for that high pressure that could be creeping across the seat. And it's one of the most common things we see with pressure regulators. Most often it's attributed to some sort of debris or dirt or damage on the seat. Luckily it's pretty easy to fix, but we need to make sure that we diagnose that that's what's going on.
In terms of things which can go wrong, typically there are two primary reasons for a problem with a regulator. Either the original regulator hasn't been properly sized and selected, or quite often we see issues with contamination impacting a regulator. That is usually or often when the regulator is first installed and in the commissioning process, dirt, debris is left in the line, and the regulator functions with this very fine gap between the seat and the poppet. Any debris, if it gets into that gap, can cause the regulator malfunction. Contamination will cause a seat leak, so gas will flow across the seat when it really should be not flowing, it should be closed.
Another common issue we see as customers are using pressure regulators is the supply pressure effect. So the supply pressure effect is something you see while a regulator is in operation. It is likely working as it should, but it's a counterintuitive behavior of pressure regulators such that as your inlet pressure falls, as it would very often if you're feeding from a cylinder and you use that gas, the pressure is going to decrease. As that inlet pressure falls, your outlet pressure will have a tendency to rise, which for many customers sends up an alarm bell that there is something wrong with this regulator, when in fact, that's the physics of how regulators work, and it's a normal behavior. There are things that we can do in terms of selecting different properties in the regulator or components or configurations to minimize the supply pressure effect if it's required for those applications. Our field engineers have a deep technical knowledge of regulator function and troubleshooting, so they can help customers diagnose just what might be going wrong with those pressure regulators.
Ultimately, what's impactful to a customer, what the customer doesn't realize is when they are looking for a regulator, it's more than just a single component. They want it to work fluently with the rest of their system. And a lot of times they don't consider what effect that component will have on the rest of the system, whether it's a valve, whether it's a gauge, whether it's a technician that has to use that system. The regulator is just a piece of that puzzle, and taking a more holistic look of it really allows us to more safely provide them a solution to their need.